I'm just telling you this so you don't think that there's anything you're missing. You understand? I don't want you to think that you're out of it. And I'm sick of having people thinking, what does that mean? It just means nothing.
It just means nothing. Well, a lot of us don't agree with that statement. Good morning. Welcome to another episode of The Clarion Call and another in my continuing series of Deciphering Dylan. I'm not sure I've mentioned before, but last year I created a separate channel just for my Bob Dylan reactions. It's called Deciphering Dylan. And recently I uploaded a lot of my back catalog. I have 20 Dylan reactions now on my new channel. In some cases, I went through and edited them to improve the audio quality of some of the older ones. So if you like Bob Dylan, check out the new channel, Deciphering Dylan. Now, as the whole world knows, the release of Dylan biopic, Bob Dylan is having another moment. And in fact, I just heard that the album cover that you see on your screen, the 1965 album Highway 61 Revisited, has now gone back onto the charts. At least in England, it's in the top 10. Wouldn't be surprised if it came up on American charts as well. This is an album really that broke the whole electric sound of Dylan wide open. His previous album, Bringing It All Back Home, he was still compromising. That one came out in March of '65, and he had one side of acoustic songs and the other side of electric. And then he introduces electric sound to the world at the Newport Folk Festival, famously in July of '65. And then the very next month, this came out. This is 100% electric and rock and roll album, and it's hard to describe the effect that this album had on the world of music. It was something that people had never heard before. When I was making up my new channel, I did playlists for every album that I've covered so far. And I had, I think, about 12 albums, but I had nothing from Highway 61, which is a great oversight. Of course, I've told the story many times of how I first heard Dylan when I heard the single Like a Rolling Stone come across the radio in the summer of '65, and what a monumental moment that was for me. And I have done some partial reactions, but I've never done a full reaction to that song. I've been kind of hoping that someday my partner, Howard Appel, would come back and do that song with me. So far, he hasn't been able to make it back, but I hold out hope. I want to do a song off this album called Just Like Tom Thumb's Blues. Notice the apostrophe there. It's not Tom Thumb Blues, it's Tom Thumb's Blues, apostrophe S. That's going to become interesting. Before I start the song, I want to play you a little bit of a rare concert audio from his famous concert at Albert Hall on May 27th, 1966. That was his last concert that he gave on his world tour before he returned to Woodstock and then supposedly had a motorcycle accident, but in any case, did not go out on concert for like at least 5 years. I think it was actually 7 years. You'll see in this audio that he's under the influence of something. I'm not enough of a drug expert to tell you what it is, but I think it's more than just marijuana. And he's extremely fatigued. You can hear that in his voice. It's no wonder that he had to crash and take many years off because he was running himself ragged during that tour. One thing that makes this so rare is that in later years, Dylan hardly ever spoke directly to the audience. And this clip may give you an idea why, because he's getting some backsass from the audience. Now, he did also make a similar speech about this song, this particular song, at other concerts on that world tour. There is similar stuff from one of his dates in Australia, one of his dates in France. But this one is probably unique in that he gets sassed by the audience, and his response to that is really excellent.
There's a long story behind this song. This song has to do with a painter who this certain painter is just a wonderful cosmic painter who is completely unknown to the universe, and he lives in Mexico City and travels between there and Del Rio, Texas, which is which is one of the United States, one of the bigger ones, and this happens to be all about him. He's of course he's an inspiration and is into this song. I'm just telling you this so you don't think that there's anything you're missing. You understand? I don't want you to think that you're out of it. And I'm sick of having people thinking, what does that mean? It just means nothing.
It just means nothing. Well, a lot of us don't agree with that statement, but do you hear his voice? The labored speaking, it's almost like too much effort for him to even talk. He's plainly exhausted. This is the last of a world tour, and then it's going to go south a little bit.
Thinking, what does that mean? It just means nothing. It just, you know, this is, it's impossible to explain what this means because obviously it's only, oh, come on. So this specific, it's always, you're talking to the wrong person, man. Any case, it's gonna take a second. This is gonna take a second, and I'm the last person in the world to explain any of these songs, but I want to do this because the last concert here. I mean, if you don't want me to do it, just say so. I won't, and I don't care. I couldn't care less. Okay.
You don't care. He's the last person to explain any of his songs, and that's pretty much true throughout the years. But he's getting hassled by these people that don't want to hear the explanation.
I don't care. I couldn't care less. Okay. Well, then we'll just play the music and leave, and then I'll be alright, okay? And you can just go out and read some books.
I'm not going to use this version to react to. The audio is very loud. This particular tour, he was backed by most members of the band. Robbie Robertson, Garth Hudson on the organ. I think Rick Denko was playing bass. He did not have Levon Helm. Levon declined to participate in the tour. He said that he didn't mind being booed by American audiences, but he didn't feel the need to go around the world and get booed by people all around the world. Took this one off. In some of the other videos where he doesn't get interrupted, he tells a story about this painter and claims that he had a blue period. Now, of course, Picasso was famous for having a blue period where he only painted with shades of blue. And that was some of his most popular work. So he's claiming that this so-called Mexican painter that is a complete unknown, did you catch that? Is actually had a blue period as well. And so the title of the song, just like Tom Thumb's apostrophe blues, it's not blues as in blues music, at least according to this version that he's trying to tell. It's blues as in Tom Thumb's blue paintings. I don't think anybody actually believes that story, but it's interesting because the whole song is about, being lost in the rain in Juarez, Mexico. It brings up a lot of associations with the Beat generation, the leaders of the Beat movement. Jack Kerouac being one, the novelist William Burroughs, who actually did live in Mexico and traveled back and forth to Texas. Dylan knew all those people. He met them all in New York. He actually had read Kerouac's On the Road before he ever got to New York. I was kind of inspired by that. And apparently he also met Burroughs at one point and told Burroughs how much he enjoyed his work. I don't know if he actually read any of Burroughs' work because I found it totally unreadable. I tried a number of times to read Naked Lunch and it's just incomprehensible to me what he was trying to say. But people say he's a genius, so maybe I just missed it. I'm going to switch over to the real song now, see what you think. And you'll notice that the lyrics will appear on the screen here. I don't know how legible they'll be, but here we go.
lost in the rain in Juarez when it's Easter time too. And your gravity fails and negativity don't pull you through. Don't put on any airs when you're down on Rue Morgue Avenue. They got some hungry women there and they really make a mess out of you.
Okay, so that's the first verse. There's no chorus in this song per se. There's just, I think, 6 verses that are somewhat related. They all seem to go back to the idea of being in Juarez, Mexico. Juarez was famous as a place where Americans went to get drunk and get laid. Especially young people, military people from Fort Bliss, perhaps, college students on spring break. He mentions Easter. Could very well be people going there. Apparently in Mexico, Easter is much less of a solemn celebration than it is in our country. More like a week-long festival of people partying. He's warning you, if you do go down to Juarez, be careful, and especially when you're on Rue Morgue Avenue. Rue Morgue is kind of a fake French. Rue means street, and morgue, of course, is a word that refers to a place where you keep bodies, dead bodies, the morgue. The name was also used by Edgar Allan Poe in one of his most famous stories, Murders at the Rue Morgue, which is said to be the very first detective story ever. Whether or not Dylan is giving a hat tip here to Poe or not, I don't think it really matters. The idea is be careful down in Juarez because they got some hungry women there that will make a mess out of you.
Now if you see Saint Annie, please tell her thanks a lot. I cannot move, my fingers are all in a knot. I don't have the strength to get up and take another shot. And my best friend, my doctor, won't even say what it is I've got.
So a lot of people have interpreted this verse here to refer to drug taking of some kind. And perhaps St. Annie was the person who gave him the bad drugs that messed him up. It could be alcohol, it could be something stronger. Another religious reference, apparently Annie, St. Annie, was the mother of Mary, which I guess would make her the grandmother of Jesus, if I have my theology right. I'm not sure that Dylan was aware of that either. People love to read religious references into his songs. He cannot speak and his fingers are tied into a knot and he doesn't have the strength to get another shot. Could be another shot of liquor, could be another shot of medicine. Whatever it is, he's in a bad way.
Sweet Melinda, the peasants call her the goddess of gloom. She speaks good English and she invites you up into her room. And you're so kind and careful not to go to her too soon. And she takes your voice and leaves you howling at the moon.
So Sweet Melinda, probably a prostitute, a woman that the peasants call the goddess of gloom. You might want to stay away from her too. But apparently she takes you up to her room, but nothing happens and you're left howling at the moon. So maybe she's not a prostitute. But in any case, she's a woman you want to try to avoid.
Up on Housing Project Hill, it's either fortune or fame. You must pick one or the other, though neither of them ought to be what they claim. If you're looking to get silly, you better go back to from where you came. Because the cops don't don't need you, and man, they expect the same.
Now he's veered into Housing Project Hill, which I suppose might be in Mexico, but it sounds more like a place that might be in America. Certainly we have a lot of housing projects in this country. Some people have claimed that this is a reference to one of the Jack Kerouac books. It may or may not be. I don't think it much matters. The main point here is that fame or fortune, neither one is what they claim. It can go either way, but in the end, it may not work out for you. As far as the authorities, the cops don't need you, and man, they expect the same. So again, we might be back in Mexico, or we might be in any hardscrabble town anywhere in the world where the cops are not playing around. Hope you don't ever need them, because they don't want to hear from you.
Now all the authorities, they just stand around and boast how they blackmailed the sergeant at arms into leaving his post, and picking up Angel, who just arrived here from the coast, who looked so fine at first but left looking just like a ghost.
So this is a theme that we hear a lot in the early Dylan about the corruption of government. And I don't think he's just referring to the Mexican government here. All the authorities stand around and boast how they blackmailed the sergeant at arms of leaving his post. That's almost something that is ripped from today's headlines. The authorities are bribing everybody. Dylan again shows his gift for prophecy, really penetrating into the true nature of the world. And that doesn't change. It hasn't changed in 60 years. It may not change in 60 more, but we're giving it a good shot. As far as Angel, I assume that's a lady, although some people think it might stand for a drug dealer. To me, Angel is probably a woman. She looked great when she got there, but then within a couple of days, she looked like a ghost. What could do that to a person? Drugs probably would be the top of the list. Hard living as well. But whatever it was, it didn't take long to turn her from a good-looking woman into a ghost. A really haunting image.
Soon hit the harder stuff. Everybody said they'd stand behind me when the game got rough, but the joke was on me. There was nobody even there to bluff. I'm going back to New York City. I do believe I've had enough.
Nice harmonica work there, both with a solo before the last verse and then fading out at the end. By the way, that's Mike Bloomberg also on the electric guitar playing kind of a Spanish melody. It's just amazing when you think back what Bob Dylan was able to accomplish there in such a short period of time. He releases Bringing It All Back Home in March, and then 5 months later with Highway 61, and then the following year in 96, after his world tour, he releases Blonde on Blonde as a double album. In a little more than a year, he put out 3 of the greatest albums of his career and three of the greatest albums in history. The guy was on fire. And in between, he's touring England twice and then also extending that into a world tour on the second time, including a lot of stops in America. He was actually finishing up the Blonde on Blonde album in the middle of that world tour. I guess when he had a couple days off in the American leg, he would go to Nashville, finish up that album. So the guy was just a machine back in those days. But you can see by the video I played before the song that the machine was starting to run down. There was heavy fatigue in his voice and in his whole manner. I don't know to what degree drugs were involved or what drugs he may have been on. There's rumors that he was taking amphetamines to stay awake, possibly heroin or something opiate-like, maybe to come down. I don't know. I wasn't there. Luckily, he wisely took time off to recover and to change directions. But these three albums will stand, as some of the greatest of his work. Maybe I haven't totally deciphered all the meanings in this song. To me, it's more of a feeling than an actual storyline. The verses are somewhat unconnected, other than the overall theme of just being in a bad place where bad things are happening to you. So I would tend to go with what Bob said. They don't mean nothing, but they mean everything as far as the feeling they evoke.